Our first topic of discussion is going to be about the controversy of Transcendentalism, which is a philosophical movement developed in the United States. Its core beliefs surround the inherent goodness of people and nature. The followers believe that the institutions of society have ruined the purity of the people and fuel them with the idea that individuals are their best when independent. One of the most well-known transcendentalists there was is Boston-born Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was a tall, slender, blue-eyed man who mirrored serenity in his noble features. He was a philosopher and a public intellectual, making him an extremely influential guy. Up next, we are going to be talking about the Shakers. Most Protestants in our day find that dancing, whirling, and clapping in a sacred place goes against all the rules of religion because it elevates movements over the Word of God. The reason the Shakers stand out so much to the people of the church is because they promote movements such as that in time of worship. In documentation, a few of them stated that it signifies a communal, non-individual relationship with God. They also mentioned that, quote-unquote, we believe in community ownership and being aggressive entrepreneurs. We want to launch industries and develop new technologies, they said. Citizens also noticed they care tremendously for the poor. They pray for them constantly and do anything in their power to help lower-class citizens. Now we are going to move on to the huge controversial topic of the temperance movement. The U.S. was making a huge effort to encourage moderation in the consumption of intoxicating liquors, and they were urged greatly by women who have children and have endured drunken abuse from their significant other. A pledge of abstinence was promoted by John Gough earlier in the 1800s, who had lectured many times on the evil of drinking to excess. The first statewide success for this movement was in Maine, who passed their drinking law on June 2, 1851. This act served as a model for many of the other states in the United States. Lowell, Massachusetts was founded as a planned town for the manufacture of textiles. The factory employed over 8,000 textile workers, commonly known as mill girls or factory girls. These factories brought the girls a sense of freedom because they were free from parental authority and were able to make money on their own. Many people started to criticize the entire wage labor factory system as a form of slavery and were campaigning against the long hours and harsh working conditions. This created national awareness of all the different ways slavery can be permitted without being titled as slavery in the beginning. Now we are going to be talking about the first industrial revolution. The market revolution created a very quick rise in industry. Instead of people only focusing on their personal needs, people started to specialize in producing certain things or providing certain services. It has led to an increased ability to produce certain needs, but has also led to an alliance of receiving goods from others, creating a market.
Turner's early life began in Southampton County, a plantation where slaves made up the majority of the population. He was said to have natural intelligence and learned to read and write at a very young age. Nat was very religious and was often seen fasting, praying, or reading the Bible. Turner led a rebellion that included slaves and free blacks in Southampton, Virginia on August 21, 1831. The rebels went from plantation to plantation, gathering horses and guns, freeing other slaves along the way, and recruiting other blacks who wanted to join the revolt. During the rebellion, Virginia legislators targeted free blacks with a colonization bill, which allocated new funding to remove them, and a police bill that denied free black trials by jury and made any free blacks convicted of a crime subject to sale and relocation. The slaves killed approximately 60 white men, women, and children. Whites organized militias and called out regular troops to suppress the uprising. In addition, white militias and mobs attacked blacks in the area, killing an estimated 120, many of whom were not involved in the revolt. Although Turner escaped, he was later captured and confessed to his knowledge of the rebellion and was publicly executed to frighten other rebels.
The utopian communities began to appear during the early 1800s in an effort to reform American society, mainly with religious beliefs in an attempt to create a perfect environment of their own. The start of the utopia was written in a book by Plato, one of the minds behind the Enlightenment period, which was a major influence in both utopian communities and transcendentalism. The main goals of the people were to isolate themselves in creation of their own societies that experimented with social reforms and organizations. They wanted to improve spiritual practices, moral values, and social relationships. More than 50 utopian communities began in the 1840s alone, one of the earliest being the Shakers, who were found in 1747 in New England, although their customs prohibited marriage and sexual relations, and they unfortunately became extinct by 1940.
Universal male suffrage allowed all free white males to vote and hold office without having to own land or belong to a particular religious group. Western states recently admitted to the Union. Indiana in 1816, Illinois in 1818, and Missouri in 1821 adopted state constitutions that allowed all white males to vote and hold office. Absent from these newer constitutions were any religious or property qualifications for voting. Most eastern states soon followed, eliminating the previous restrictions from their constitutions. As a result, all white males across the country could vote regardless of their social class or religion. Also, political offices could now be held by people in the lower and middle ranks of society, which led to the development of diversity in government powers. Deism was the 18th century religious doctrine that emphasized reasoned moral behavior and the scientific pursuit of knowledge. Most deists rejected biblical inerrancy and the divinity of Jesus Christ. Thomas Paine's widely noted book, The Age of Reason, declared that churches were established to enslave mankind and monopolize money and power. Many of the founding fathers, including Jefferson and Franklin, embraced the deist beliefs. The people of deism relied on reason and science, rejected sin, yet believed an almighty being created the universe. This ferment of religion began the wave of revivals during the early 19th century. In comparison to the previous Great Awakening, the Second Great Awakening is recorded as one of the most important episodes in American religious history.